Have you ever pondered upon the root causes and the trajectory of the Israel-Hamas conflict? The Israel-Hamas conflict, a deeply rooted and complex issue, has its origins in the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This tension-filled narrative began to take a more defined shape in 2005 when Israel made a strategic decision to withdraw from Gaza, a territory it had occupied since the Six-Day War in 1967. Soon after, in 2006, a significant shift in power dynamics occurred as Hamas, an Islamist political organization and militant group, rose to prominence and won the Palestinian legislative elections. This victory was a turning point, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the Israel-Palestinian saga. It set the stage for the ensuing conflict marked by a series of military confrontations, political maneuverings, and humanitarian crises. These early events form the backdrop of the Israel-Hamas conflict, a conflict that continues to shape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. As we navigate through this intricate web of historical, political, and social factors, we must remember that the narrative is far from linear. It's a mosaic of power struggles, territorial disputes, and ideological differences that have shaped and continue to shape the history of the region. Let's delve deeper into the timeline of this long-standing conflict. The year 2006 marked a significant turning point in the Israel-Hamas conflict. This was the year when the dynamics of the conflict took a dramatic turn. The capture of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit by Hamas militants in June of that year was a pivotal event, one that intensified the conflict and set the stage for years of violence and political shifts. Shalit's capture was not just a military event, it was a political maneuver that had far-reaching implications, fueling tensions and hostility between the two sides. Just a year later, in 2007, we saw Hamas seizing control of the Gaza Strip after a bloody conflict with the rival Palestinian faction, Fatah. This takeover solidified Hamas's power in Gaza, turning the Strip into a launching pad for attacks against Israel and a stronghold for the group's operations. It was a move that further heightened the stakes and deepened the divide between Israel and Hamas. The following year, in 2008 and then again in 2014, Israel launched major military offensives in Gaza. These operations, dubbed Cast Lead and Protective Edge respectively, were responses to rocket fire from Gaza into Israeli territory. They resulted in heavy casualties and massive destruction in Gaza, leading to international outcry and further inflaming the conflict. What's important to note is that these events were not just isolated incidents. They were part of a larger narrative of escalation, a cycle of attack and counterattack that has characterized the Israel-Hamas conflict for years. Each event seemed to build upon the previous one, creating a snowball effect of increasing violence and tension. And as we moved from 2006 to 2014, we saw this escalation not just in the frequency and intensity of violence, but also in the political rhetoric and the stakes involved. The conflict was not just about territory or military superiority, it was also about identity, ideology, and the struggle for legitimacy and recognition. As we can see, the conflict escalated rapidly and dramatically over these years. Fast forward to the past few years, the waves of conflict have risen and fallen, but the situation remains far from resolution. The year 2018 saw a surge in Palestinian protests, a collective outcry against long-standing grievances and perceived injustices. This period was marked by a surge in tensions and sporadic outbreaks of violence, adding another chapter to the already complex narrative. Then came May of 2021, a month that etched itself into the annals of this protracted conflict. The escalation was rapid, with Israeli airstrikes and rocket fire from Palestinian militants transforming the landscape into a battleground. The world watched in trepidation as the region was engulfed in a wave of violence unseen in recent years. August of 2022 brought further escalation. Israeli airstrikes once again hit Gaza, and in retaliation, rockets rained down on Israel from the militant Islamic Jihad group. The resulting clashes led to the loss of around 30 Palestinian lives, marking a serious escalation since the 11-day war in May the previous year. This period also saw the killing of a senior Islamic Jihad commander by Israeli forces, triggering a continued exchange of airstrikes and rocket fire. Amid the violence, another point of contention emerged: the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. This religious site, sacred to both Jews and Muslims, became a hotspot for tensions. The presence of Jewish visitors at the mosque compound added fuel to an already volatile situation, stoking further unrest and animosity. These recent events have further intensified the conflict and have led to a rise in international concern and involvement. The world watches, waits, and wonders. When will a resolution be found? But as the dust settles after each wave of conflict, a resolution seems as elusive as ever. So what have we learned from this deep dive into the Israel-Hamas conflict? We've traveled through time and events, starting with the historical and geographical backdrop that set the stage for this conflict. We've seen how the ancient city of Jerusalem, with its religious and political significance, has been a focal point of contention between Israel and Hamas. The issue of Jerusalem's status, and particularly the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, has been a trigger for outbreaks of violence, as we've seen in the news highlights we've discussed. Next, we explored the escalation of the conflict, with key events such as Israel's withdrawal from Gaza in 2005 and the rise of Hamas in 2006. We've seen how these events have set off a cycle of violence, with periodic flare-ups, such as the Israeli airstrikes and rocket fire from the militant Islamic Jihad group, leading to tragic loss of life. In our discussion of recent developments, we've noted the ongoing tensions with major flare-ups like the 11-day war in May of 2021 and the conflict that erupted in August 2022. Amid these events, we've also highlighted the role of external factors such as Israeli nationalist marches and international reactions. But what does this all mean? This conflict is not just about two entities locked in a struggle. It's a reflection of the wider issues that affect our world today. The struggles for national identity, the impact of religious beliefs on politics, and the contentious issue of land ownership. It's a conflict that reverberates beyond the borders of Israel and Gaza, impacting the international community and shaping global politics. As we've seen, this is an ongoing conflict with no easy solutions. It's a complex issue that requires careful handling, diplomacy, and above all, a genuine desire for peace from all parties involved. This conflict is a poignant reminder of the complex interplay of politics, religion, and territory. As we continue to witness its unfolding, one can only hope for a peaceful resolution in the near future.